Hi everybody, so I am trying out filming on my iPad tonight instead of my phone because I feel like when I film with my phone, the screen is too small. So I have a feeling that this may be the best way to film my wrap-ups from now on because because you will be able to get a better view of all the book covers. So this is my July wrap up and my August TBR for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR, which is the Gilmore Girls and Friends TBR. So I need to explain a little bit about the selections for this TBR. So Kathleen and I went through a list on the internet at the end of last year of books that were featured on Gilmore Girls. And I also found a list online on Goodreads before I stopped using Goodreads about books that were featured on Friends. So that's where we got a majority of these books. I also was listening to videos on Books and Lala's channel where she was reviewing books from each year she's been alive. She is a little bit younger than me. I would say she's in her mid-30s. So I gathered a couple of these books from that series of videos. And aside from the list I'm doing with Kathleen, I also put together my own TBR about books that were published during the years that Friends and Gilmore Girls were on TV. So those are most of the books you will see in this video. So for my July wrap-up, the first book that I read is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This book is by the same author as The Kite Runner, which I don't know if this is the sequel to The Kite Runner or if it's a totally separate book, but this book seems to focus on the history of Afghanistan from the 1970s to 2001 when the Iraq War happened, and it's very, very interesting. I think I'm going to review this book in a separate video, which will be out in a couple of days, so feel free to wait for that. The next two books are rereads. The first one is Beach Read by Emily Henry. Kathleen and I are reading this together. I read this book every summer, and I have had this book for 3 years, so this is my third time reading it. It focuses on Gus and January. January and Gus are both writers. January goes to the family's lake house after her dad passes away. Her parents are divorced because her dad cheated on her mom, and then her dad dies of cancer. And this book will make you cry, so prepare for lots of tissues being used, because later on in the book, January finds a box of letters that her dad wrote to her each year on her birthday as she was growing up until the time he passed away. And the last note that he wrote to her had me sobbing. Okay, so A Thousand Splendid Suns was 5 stars, by the way. Beach Read is 4.5 stars. My next reread from July was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is my second time reading Better Than the Movies. The first time I read it was last year, and I first heard about Lynn Painter's books from Haley Pham and Destiny Sidwell and Sarah Caroli. So you would be really shocked to know that as a 39-year-old, I still like reading YA books, but I just love Lynn Painter's writing style. And this book is so much fun. It focuses on two high schoolers, Wes and Liz. And Liz it gets Wes involved in having her ask his friend to the prom for her, but Wes is secretly in love with Liz, and their dynamic together is very cute. So, Beach Read and Better Than the Movies were both on a list on Instagram that I found of books that are paired up with Gilmore Girls couples. Beach Read was paired up with Paris and Doyle. I cannot comment on their relationship because I have not seen their episodes yet. Better Than the Movies, I'm pretty sure was paired up with Tristan and Rory. And I mean, I think this book was a good pair for them. They are an underrated couple in Friends, and their relationship doesn't last very long because, I mean, Chad Michael Murray left Gilmore Girls to do other movies like Freaky Friday and other shows like One Tree Hill. But I feel like their relationship could have been developed a little bit more because in the scene at the Chilton party where Rory goes to comfort Tristan after his breakup with Summer, I just saw a slight bit of chemistry between them that could have led to a good friendship. And so the cool thing about this book is that each chapter starts off with a quote from a romantic comedy movie. I will read you one of my favorites. Let me see if I can find one from a book that we're reading on TBR, because that would be helpful. Let's see. Not that one. Things I hate about you. Nope. Haven't seen that one either. Okay, here's a good one. Okay, so this quote is from a movie that Kathleen and I just watched on Friday, which is called Bridget Jones's Diary. It is a modern retelling of Pride and Prejudice that stars Renee Swellinger, Hugh Grant, and Colin Firth. And the quote is from the beginning of chapter 8 in Better Than the Movies. I like you very much just as you are. Short, sweet, simple. That's what I love about it. We gave... I don't know what Kathleen gave Pride and Prejudice for a rating, but I gave it 5 stars, and I gave Bridget Jones's Diary 8 out of 10 stars on IMDb. We will be doing a book-to-movie comparison of Pride and Prejudice and Bridget Jones's Diary, as well as the TV movie of Emma and the book Emma and the modern retellings, Emma of 83rd Street and Love Decoded, in our August wrap-up video on August 30th for the podcast. So stay tuned for that video. And also please stay tuned for our radio show on Sunday on WMPG from 5 to 6:30. We will be celebrating my 40th birthday. So there will be a lot of 90s music from bands like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, and a song from that movie, That Thing You Do, which starred Tom Everett Scott and Liv Tyler, and also Steve Zahn from the episode of Friends, the one with Phoebe's husband, where Phoebe has a husband for a little bit, who is a gay ice dancer from Canada who didn't get his green card renewed. And we will, in addition to doing a book to movie comparison of Emma and Clueless, we will also be reviewing the nonfiction book As If, an oral history of Clueless and what we learned about the making of the movie, and also reviewing Fools Rush In and 17 again. So stay tuned. Lots of fun music, lots of fun things to talk about. That's at on WMPG on Sunday, August 10th, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Come Closer. This book is a crossover book with my thriller, horror, and dark academia TBR. So for the from the Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR, this book was on my subset TBR of books that were published during the years of Friends and Gilmore Girls are on. Come Closer is a horror book. It's a novella, and this is a quick read, and this really helps me to get out of a reading slump, because some of the books on this TBR are really very sad. Like this one, for example. This book is pretty sad. It's a modern retelling of Little Women, and for those of you who are familiar with Little Women, Beth dies of scarlet fever, and in this modern retelling, it's more of a modern disease of a brain tumor that the character that is representative of Beth dies of. With Come Closer, this is my first book by this author, and I would like to read more from her, so if anybody else has read any other books by Sarah Gran, please point me in a direction, because I really like this author's writing style. It's a very short and sweet book, and as I said, it keeps me out of a reading slump, because throughout the course of this TBR, I've read a lot of sad books, including Matthew Perry's memoir, which kind of puts me in a slump sometimes. As much as I love to read it, it makes me sad. So this book came out in 2003, which was during season 9 of Friends and season 3 of Gilmore Girls. And A Thousand Splendid Suns came out in 2007, season 7 of Gilmore Girls. The next book I wanted to talk about today is Hello Beautiful by Anna Napolitano. As I was just saying, this book is a modern retelling of the classic book by Louisa May Alcott, Little Women. I've read this book 3 times, and I really love the way Anna Napolitano reimagines all of the characters. This book has really good mental health rep in it, because the main male character, William, has a lot of mental illness going on, and it talks about how he copes with it. And so, as I have mentioned in other reviews of Little Women, the character I connect most to in Little Women is Jo, because she's a writer, and she likes to act in plays with her sisters. And likewise, the main protagonist in this book, Julia, is a journalist. And how that connects to Gilmore Girls is because Rory wants to be an international affairs journalist like Christiane Amanpour, and she goes to college at Yale to study journalism, and then she drops out. Sorry for the spoiler alert, but I'm assuming if you have watched Gilmore Girls before, you know what happens with Rory's trajectory. She drops out of college for a bit because she has an internship at a newspaper where her boyfriend's dad is her boss, and she doesn't accept criticism very well. So she ends up dropping out of school and stealing another person's yacht because of her reaction to her boss's opinion of her writing. So this book got 4.5 stars. The next book is called Mean Baby. This is Selma Blair's memoir. For those of you who have seen Legally Blonde, Selma Blair plays Vivian Kensington, who is the villain of the movie. She is the girl who Elle Woods realizes is dating Warner once she gets to Harvard Law School. And I really love how their friendship blossoms over the course of the movie, because she goes from being a mean girl to really being on Elle's side and realizing how much of a jerk Warner really is. So, as I don't know if I have mentioned this before, but Legally Blonde is probably one of my favorite movies, and Reese Witherspoon is Elle Woods, and I have heard something there's an Amazon Prime series coming out that's a prequel series to Legally Blonde about Elle in high school. So, if anybody knows when that is airing, please let me know, because I really would like to watch it. So, Selma Blair goes into detail about backstage experiences on Dawson's Creek, in Legally Blonde, and in the movie Cruel Intentions, which came out in 1999. Later on, in the book, she discusses her diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, and obviously I read this last month for Disability Pride Month, and it's really very interesting to learn about her diagnosis and how she manages it and copes with it. Selma Blair is not the only actress from Friends who has multiple sclerosis either. People may not know this, but Christina Applegate, who played Rachel's sister Amy, also has multiple sclerosis. For those of you not familiar, Selma Blair was on Friends in season 8 in the episode where Chandler goes away to work in Tulsa, and she plays Chandler's coworker in Oklahoma named Wendy, who you see in the scene where Chandler is calling home and checking in and seeing how Monica is doing. And the thing that's cool about this episode is that I guess in this episode Chandler was supposed to cheat on Monica, but Matthew Perry said no to that plot line because he thought that it would really make all of the fans of Monica and Chandler mad, and I'm really, really glad that he did that. So this book gets 5 stars. 4.75, which is very close to 5. The next book is The Trouble with Hating You. So this book was on the same list on Instagram I found about books that describe Gilmore Girls couples, and this book describes Dean and Rory, and I also think this book really depicts them very well. I'm not a big fan of Dean. I don't understand why people like him so much. I think he's really a narcissist, and he's also very misogynistic and has certain views of women that I don't like. Like, maybe I analyzed this episode wrong, but I don't like the episode where Rory dresses up as Donna Reed. Maybe I'm overreacting, and she does do this willingly to impress him, but I think it's kind of stupid that she has to dress up like a housewife and do stuff she doesn't want to do to impress her boyfriend. Out of the couple so far on Gilmore Girls, I like Jess. But then, I like Jess mostly because he has more in common with Rory than Dean does. Dean kind of stalks Rory from the very beginning. I get it, Alexis Bledel is pretty, but I think in order to have a good relationship, you need to have stuff in common with each other. And Jess and Rory have at least the thing in common that they like to read. I don't think that Rory and Dean really had anything in common at all, personally. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. I would love to hear what you think about Dean and Rory. This book gets 4 stars. So I'm a little bit ahead of Kathleen in this TBR because this is one of the books we're reading in December. I don't want to get too far into what it's about because we will be reviewing it in the final podcast episode in December. This book was actually recommended by Lauren Graham on her Instagram, where she posts pictures of books that she's reading. She posted the picture with this book in it in like March or April, but for some reason now it's no longer on her Instagram page. She must have taken it down for some reason, so unfortunately I'm unable to link the picture that she mentions this book in. But this is my first book by this author, Kristen Proby, and I can't wait to read more from her. She seems to have a very extensive list of books, so I will definitely be checking out the next book in this series, which I think is called Wilds of Montana. This series is called Wilds of Montana, but I don't see any, I don't see a list of the other books in this particular series, but I think the next series I'm going to probably read from her is the Halloween one for October, and the books in those series are The Curse of the Blood Moon, Series Hallows End, Cauldron's Call, and Salem Song. So I will be definitely checking those out in October. So I'm not going to give my rating for this book yet because I will be reading it again in December, and Kathleen and I will be reviewing it in the final episode of the podcast on December 15th. Now, to my August TBR, which for physical books, I have 3. I'm also rereading Left Up Forever by Tara DeWitt, which is an ebook that I downloaded earlier this spring when it first came out in April. So the first 2 books I'm currently reading on the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR are in the Mendel Hawk series by Deanna Gray. This is a hockey romance series which was introduced to me by Emmy Rossum on BookTube, so thank you, Emmy, for recommending this series to me. I'm really liking it. I got this book out of the library last week, and this book out of the library at the end of last week, a couple of days ago on Saturday. In Sunny Disposition, I am on page 207, and in Team Player, I am on page, oh my god, that type is so tiny, 108. The next book that I just finished, I started this book last week when I got home from vacation, and I just finished it yesterday. This book is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This was a huge chunker. It was 760 171 pages. So I think this is the longest book that I have read for this TBR so far this year. I think it's going to probably get 5 stars. I love the atmosphere of it. It's set in New York. The reason, obviously, why it's in this TBR is because A, it's set in New York City, and B, because our main protagonist, Theo, works in an antique shop like Lane does, because Lane helps her mother in her antique store. So, I would say this book was good. It was interesting. I really loved Theo's character and how he developed over the course of the book. This, I think, will get 5 stars, and I'm very excited to read The Secret History in October for Halloween, because that is a dark academia book. Another book I will be rereading for this TBR will be The Do-Over, which was on that same recommendations list that I found on Instagram about couples from Gilmore Girls. And that book was paired up with Lane and Dave, so I'm really excited to reread that book again and analyze to see how well it fits Lane and Dave. So thanks for tuning in. I said last week that I was taking a break from posting videos, but I'm already so behind on posting because I was on vacation from the 18th to the 25th. So I'm just trying to catch up on all my booktube videos. I will be pumping out a few new videos this week. And then, as I mentioned in my community post, for those who look at those, my great aunt died when I was on vacation. She died on July 22nd. She was in failing health, but I'm happy that she died peacefully and that she wasn't in any pain. I really miss you, Aunt Marie. Her funeral is Friday. So, thank you for tuning in.